We count down?
Sure.
3, 2, 1. The podcast has started.
This is the beginning of the
of our podcast, and it's called We Disagree with Nick and Cosmo.
Yes, I'm Nick Dollinger.
And I'm Cosmo. The first thing I have on my list, Nick...
Well, you should introduce the podcast and the premise of it.
Fuck. I mean, we'll have to bleep that. The premise of our podcast is that me and Nick are two philosophy enthusiasts with wildly different dispositions on life. I am a mainstream leftist weirdo, and he is a fundamentalist Catholic man. And we're here to take all the weirdest philosophical questions and take them way too seriously.
Yes, he is a normie and I am a crypto-Jansenist.
Whatever that means. The first thing on my list is that we have to pick out our podcast personas. Because, you know, I know you in real life, but it's different on the air.
Oh. Wait, so...
Is this going to be good cop, bad cop?
Oh.
Is this gonna...
Well, who would be good cop and who would be bad cop?
I don't know. I think you're too good and too bad for me.
I know. I'm constantly a low-burning Joker mode, but I also tend to think that I'm a pretty nice guy, so I could go either way.
Okay. First rule of the podcast that I'm gonna impose is do not use the word Joker mode.
All right, I'm out.
Yeah, all right. I quit.
Yeah, it's been good, but
I'll be in my trailer.
Yeah, I mean, I think my persona is... I don't know. I am the persona.
You are the persona. Yeah, I think...
What about you? What's your gimmick?
Well, my imagination for the show that my pitch has been Nick is so weird and I need people to listen to him. So in that way, our personas are I'm like the manager and you're the talent. And I'm here to make money off of your quirks.
Well, I'm flattered. I think that that's quite the compliment. I honestly don't think that I'm that weird. I think that I am truly, like, I have broken through the threshold of normie, and I've come full circle.
Well, that's the tragedy of the eccentric, is that they don't see their own eccentricism.
Yeah.
Well, our first segment, which I guess we'll get into now, I'm going to call this segment Philosophical Fieldwork. Because, you know, it's such an absurd name. Because there is no philosophical fieldwork. But today we're going to try. Because we have been having an argument. How do I introduce this argument, good Nick?
Yeah, this is like an ongoing dispute. It's something I feel like I end up talking about a lot, but the fundamental point of contention is like whether subjective emotional states such as pleasure or pain can serve as a basis for a complete and normative ethical system. And I would take the somewhat counterintuitive, although I actually think very easy to justify, position that pleasure and suffering are in and of themselves more or less value neutral, and that a morality based entirely on the tautological kind of assumption that pain is bad does not have any normative pull or like gravity upon someone and does not compel them to act in accordance with its precepts.
Incredible introduction. I am of a different opinion that I do not have as good an explanation of, but I guess I'm here to ask Nick. I guess I'm here to summarize what Nick is saying. Is that pain itself, in and of itself, is not a bad thing. You can
Yes.
choose to feel pain, and I think my and most people's qualm with that is that pain is so obviously bad. When I'm in a lot of pain, it is so obvious that this is wrong. And you're saying that intuition is just misguided.
Yes.
Well, I disagree.
Yes.
What do you mean?
We disagree.
We disagree. Second veto, I don't want to say we disagree every time we do. Because I think that will happen a lot.
We're still getting our footing, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like the issue comes down to kind of the That's a lot of dead air. It takes time to collect my thoughts. Maybe I wasn't cut out to be a podcaster.
No one was. It's a false profession.
I think that, like, the presumption, I mean, like, it really does just kind of come down to a tautology that, like, suffering is bad because it's bad or because it feels bad. And I think that in order to actually try to, like, lay it out as, like, an argument with premises and, like, conclusions and, like, you know, in formal logical terms, that it really just ends up resting on either the conflation of certain terms, like good, and like conflating it to mean pleasure, as I think like the Greek philosophers sometimes lean into, or just like kind of arbitrarily asserting that this subjective emotional state that compels you to seek more of it, like as like your first like intuitive response to it, is inherently like correct in like a moral sense in that. But I think that that's like I said, like an arbitrary assertion, like, and I think that you need to take assumptions epistemologically and maybe metaphysically, but I don't think you need like those assumptions in value theory or in morality.
But yeah, I think most people, or what my intuition is for why that's wrong is that those so-called arbitrary intuitions, like pleasure is good, I want more of it, are so much more meaningful. They're not arbitrary. They're non-arbitrary in that they feel so incredibly meaningful. Like, it's so certain when I'm in pain that I want it to stop. And that's where the authority comes from, you know?
Well, of course they feel meaningful because they are feelings. That's what they're meant to do. Like,
yeah, but that is meaningful.
I think it meaningfully tells you that you have experienced that feeling, and that I would say is probably irrefutable, that you experience the feeling that you experience. But
I've experienced the feeling of wrongness.
Well, no, you've experienced the feeling of wrongness.
No, that doesn't make sense.
That tautology does not get you as far as, like, my experience is actually correlated to any, like, external reality, like, to myself. I don't think it, like, I think it really comes down to the problem of taking, like, statements of is and extracting from them a statement of ought, which I just think that, like, hedonic, like, value theory misses. I don't think it takes that. I don't think it successfully executes that step.
You're missing the ought. Well, I don't have a great response to that right now, but I will explain now. The reason I call this philosophical fieldwork is because we will be doing a real experiment, in that we will be eating very spicy habanero peppers and seeing if I can change Nick's mind about this.
Well, so what would you say if you had to articulate like a positive version of your argument and to like give it, like, make the strongest case possible for why suffering is inherently bad?
Well, Nick, I don't think so my argument is basically that is ought gap is crossed when you feel something so intensely that it is certain. When that happens, you can be certain of a thing. So when we feel pain and we say, this is bad, and you feel that so intensely that you can feel it so intensely that you become certain of the existence of wrongness. And
that you feel certain of the existence of wrongness. I mean,
but you are certain. Like, you can't feel certain of its existence and not believe in it.
I think it is at least, like, theoretically possible to be, like, completely convinced of something that also happened, like, to be completely, like, to feel certain of it, even though it is not necessarily true. I think
but it would be irrational to not believe it. Even if it was wrong, it would be irrational to not believe something that you're certain of.
Well, I'm not certain that pain is bad. Like, I think if you scrutinize it for, like, maybe, like, 30 seconds and, like, actually, like, demand it to warrant itself, that you can undercut the intensity of feeling that...
I think if you were in a lot of pain, you would be certain that pain is bad.
Right, well, I guess that makes a good segue then into...
Good segue into our actual field work is that we will be performing an experiment where we eat habanero peppers, become in pain, and then I am hoping that Nick will experience the certainty of wrongness.
I honestly don't think that's the most likely outcome. I should preface this experiment by saying that I don't think that it really does, it empirically tests our positions as well as it should, because, like, okay, so say that like, Cosmo's best world actually does come out of this, and I repent and say, actually, pain is bad. Like, I think that in order for that to be authoritative, you would also, like, still have to establish that, like, my, like, perception of the incident under the state of pain is in any way more epistemically credible than my perception before, and that I'm not being misled by, like, a manipulative deluge of negative emotion.
But you can't be misled about what you feel. You can be certain of what you're feeling.
But you're conflating the issue of, like, what you feel with its implications in terms of, like, a metaphysical or, like, value theory structure outside of yourself.
Well, my hope is, I'm also not optimistic that I will truly convince you, but my hope is that you will both change your mind while in pain, and then after being in pain, you'll see a new world.
I mean, if I'm just traumatized by it, I think my argument would still apply, although I think that, honestly, what we're addressing now is an incredibly unlikely outcome, so...
Well, we'll have to do a second episode where you're in tons of pleasure.
Oh yeah, that might be the sway, but
that might get you.
That might swing my vote.
Bringing in a masseuse.
But also, I think if the experiment doesn't work, it also doesn't, like, conclusively prove my thesis either. Like, it, like, or if, like, if I can just, like, tough it out, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that pain is value neutral. It just means that I am apt to, like. But it's a good...
That's the point of philosophy fieldwork, is that there is no actual fieldwork that helps philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
is the sad
Our next
truth.
episode has to address the epistemological issue of empirical data and the reliability of this kind of tests.
Boy, people are going to click on that.
Yeah.
We disagree, episode 2, the problem with the
no
empirical
habanero
data.
Peppers. Oh, what would be the gimmick for the next episode?
Yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine what fun we could get from
hijinks.
surveying statistics and empirical studies and questioning the meta-philosophy of of how those studies are actually meaningful.
Yeah.
Real... crowd pleaser.
Well, should we take some some qualitative data beforehand? Like I could say, how do you feel about choosing to be in pain on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's almost purely an abstraction to me at this point. I think that the idea that I will be in immense pain, in 5 minutes or so, it really just it feels very abstract and unlikely, and it's not something that I'll really have to grapple with or contend with until it actually happens.
So you're at about a 1 for negative emotions oriented towards pain.
Yeah, I kind of need to go to the bathroom, but
we can take a small break first.
I'd rather not.
Okay.
Let's just go in. Let's tear off this Band-Aid and
Okay, would you like to eat a pepper now? We're
Okay.
filming?
Yeah, let's do it.
Big one? Small one?
You know what? I'll take the big one.
Wow, you really do have no negative emotions.
You baited me.
I did.
That was a successful bait.
Okay, so we're gonna eat all of it.
I'm not gonna eat the stem. That's too far.
Yeah, stem is too. Not part of the pain. I
That's
think
just gross.
I think you're really underestimating how much this is gonna hurt Nick.
It's abstract. It's an abstract hurt in the future.
It will not be abstract in about a minute. It will be so certain.
Can we go into presentism? No, I won't stall anymore. Cheers.
Cheers. Record scratch. Stop the podcast. Hello. This is Cosmo recording from the future, just to let you know that, as expected, the next 10 minutes are practically unusable. So I have edited them down into about a 2.5 minute segment, which is mostly us breathing and in a lot of pain. I'll give you the rundown on what happens. Nick starts hiccuping a lot and can't talk. Eventually he leaves to throw up, comes back, looks absolutely horrible. Leaves again, comes back, and we start talking again. So if you don't want to hear us breathing and in a lot of pain, you can skip ahead about 2.5 minutes. But if you do want to hear it, just keep on listening. Another unexpected consequence of eating the peppers, however, is that we become very kind of lethargic for the second half of the podcast. It turns out being in a lot of pain is kind of exhausting. So, hope you enjoy. Let's get right back into it.
Oh, it's sweet.
It is sweet.
Actually, I'd still say I'm enjoying it for now.
Yeah. This seems less spicy than usual. We might have to eat a second one.
Oh.
We also might have to cut a lot of the next 5 minutes out.
Yeah. Oh. I can't speak. Oh.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks, but I can't recant my position.
Can you say it again?
Oh. Yeah, I think I need a glass of water in order to be able to speak.
Oh my gosh. We got no milk.
My ears hurt.
Oh my god. Is this not so obviously wrong?
No, it's not wrong.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's really hurting my,
Maybe ice?
Okay. There's no ice.
No, there's no ice. Oh my god.
I need to go to the bathroom. How you doing?
Oh my god. You look so horrible.
Well, don't be afraid to tell it like it is.
What would you give to not be in pain right now?
$1.
$1? I would give a good $10.
I just want to get on with the podcast.
Yeah. I promise our future segments will be less intense.
Now that the real heat of it has subsided, I think it was worth it. I think it was meaningful. I would say when it began to become an issue was when it was prolonged and it incapacitated me from doing other meaningful things, such as continuing the podcast. And I do believe that pain can, come to incapacitate someone and therefore become an impediment to the things that they value.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't make it inherently bad. That means in certain arrangements it can become inconvenient to other intrinsic goods.
Yeah. You seem to have had an especially averse reaction. Can you describe what you were feeling?
It was sweet at first. It was not.
Yeah, it was so deceptive in the first 30 seconds.
I kind of expected it to be like that too, but I still fell for it.
Yeah, I did too.
It's like the aftertaste. It burns you as it's going down. It burns you in your mouth to this very moment, really. I was surprised that it went up into my nostrils somehow.
Yeah,
and
I've never gotten that.
And so, yeah, I had a brown out moment in the bathroom. I'm not proud of it, but I cleaned it up. I didn't want to leave a mess for the super, so I think that I did a good job.
That is good. See, you still had the forethought of your morals, even in this intense experience.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's the least I could do.
Yeah. So now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are your emotions towards continued pain?
Well, like I said, it was a good experiment. It was good as long as it didn't create any lasting damage.
Yeah.
It was just an unpleasant moment.
We have more habaneros.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least one qualitative difference is that 10 minutes ago you said yes to a habanero, and now you will say no.
Yeah, I mean, we could have like another episode. I could like vomit more on my lunch, and we could interrupt the podcast more. Like, But yeah, it's really the consequences of pain that external to the pain itself that I think, or they're not even consequences of pain. I think they're just consequences of pepper. Like making a mess in the bathroom, like that's a bigger ignominy to me than just like feeling bad.
Yeah.
Like losing calories from my lunch, and not to be like too gross about it, but like that to me like was a greater, like in my intellect is a greater grievance than just like feeling bad for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to come back to a higher pain, less consequence scenario, like a bee sting.
Or yeah, like electric shock maybe.
Electric shock. We'll get some tasers in for the next episode.
I signed up for a psychology experiment that involved getting tased.
Yeah?
It was it felt like a hiccup. A painful hiccup.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind it.
Well, I'm impressed by the composure of your argument. That you're still saying that the pain was not. I thought it was very obvious that my pain was telling me this has to end.
Well, you seem to hold up pretty well.
Yeah, I eat a lot of peppers.
Uh-huh.
I've kind of tricked you into this when
so
my
you have an
tolerance is a little
immunity.
higher. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well. Yeah, I mean, sorry I'm lobotomized. I can't make my argument as effectively, but
It's okay.
I just think, like, yeah, like, some of the stuff, like, it caused, like, a net reduction in my dignity, which I think is, like, a deeper, like, offense than just, like, feeling bad, and I would probably rather suffer through that experience without any opt-out option for 24 hours and live the most dignified 24 hours of my life than go through tomorrow as a normal day, for example.
Well, that argument actually brings us pretty clean into our next segment, is some thought experiments about pain.
Oh.
And the first one I had was Socrates in the Republic has a thought experiment where he I'm not sure if it's in the Republic. He asked someone, is it better to live and be a righteous man, but everyone treats you as if you're the worst person alive, or to actually be extremely evil, but for everyone to believe that you are righteous? So in the case of the righteous person, you'll be arrested, and tortured and whatever because you're literally the worst person people know of, even though secretly you're extremely righteous. And in the other case, you become president or whatever. Everyone thinks you're the best, even though you're this real scummy, amoral, blah, blah, blah.
I think the righteous in this case does a lot of work, and it's almost like defined as it's defined like I think you would define it in such a way that it must be better, like because righteousness is like a measure of goodness, and better is like the what's the word, superlative form of goodness, right? It is so, or the comparative form of goodness. So like inherently, it must be better to be righteous than unrighteous under any condition, like.
But yeah, but I think then why do people always choose the other path? There's all of these people. There's all these young guys on Wall Street who are doing work that actually harms people, but they're treated as if they're the pinnacle of society, and they make a lot of money, and they have a lot of pleasurable experiences. Why do people choose that lifestyle then?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think that Socrates at different points in his, or in Plato in different points in his career, he kind of goes back and forth on whether someone with total information can consciously choose the bad, right? But I think towards the end, his later dialogues, he basically takes it as presuppositional that if given perfect information, it would be impossible to choose the bad, right?
Yeah.
But I'm undecided about that. I mean, I think it is possible for will to supersede just a pure reasonable and correct value system,
Mm-hmm.
But I could go either way.
Well,
what do you think?
What do I think? I don't know. No, I think they're both equally horrible options. I'm skeptical about the totally evil person even being able to appreciate any pleasure at all. I think that's a weird kind of argument that a person who is all powerful, loved by everyone, can actually even derive pleasure from that. Or that maybe the argument goes the other way too, that a perfectly righteous person could be hurt by torture. So I think they're both equally bad. I think they're both truly worst case scenarios.
I mean, I don't take for granted that an evil person can't experience pleasure. I think that they have the evil is really just the preference for a subordinate good to a higher good, right? And I don't think that people if some finance bro demolishes a village in Barfavania or whatever to make a quick buck, and then uses it to buy what's a radio friendly example for this thought experiment?
Yeah, escorts.
Oh, I wasn't even gonna go there. Okay,
strip club.
He used
Everyone
it
knows
to
about
buy.
strip.
Yeah, he used it to. Well, I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about that. Let's say he uses it to buy MDMA.
Okay.
It literally does give him pleasure, and I don't think just because he's evil and he hasn't considered all of the moral goodness doesn't mean that it isn't legitimately pleasurable. I think that that's just a semantic game, right?
Yeah.
To deny that this thing that obviously registers in a similar way as pleasure is pleasurable to him because he is just so low in your estimation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is not a realistic or I think that's a very self-serving kind of definition.
But are you arguing that only in the case that that person is ignorant of all the harm they are doing?
Well, I mean, I don't really take a position on the kind of question that that Plato evolved on. I don't know whether you would have to be ignorant, whether ignorance or alone is responsible for evil, or whether it really is something innate to the will. I would lean towards the voluntarism side of it, though. I think that it is I would probably lean towards it is possible to will for evil even in full recognition of it as such.
Okay. Say that again. I didn't quite get that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, like I can't communicate. I'm just
Okay, I can't hear.
still coping.
More pepper?
I think that I would lean towards the side that with perfect information that someone can actually choose evil over good.
Really? How can you say, you just said that evil is the choosing a subordinate good to the rather than the ultimate good. If they know there's an ultimate good, how is it possible to choose a subordinate one?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that just like it's impossible to like not settle on something positive that you value. You can't value the absence of something really meaningfully. But like, I mean, I guess like my real if I do make an assumption like an a priori on the level of value theory, it is that it's better to exist than not to exist. And so maybe then you could alternatively define evil as that which orients towards the destruction of consciousness, or towards like the destruction of positive features or attributes, and that those things are evil because they're unsustainable.
Yes.
Wow, we agree.
I'm not sure if we agree, but I think I understand what you're saying, and I don't have a great response.
Well, that's okay.
Next thought experiment. The only other one I thought of was the Ursula K. Le Guin story. I forget what it's even called. The ones who walk away from Omelas, where there's a society of people who are all extremely happy, and it all rests on kind of the shoulders, figuratively, of a child who's locked in a dungeon and being tortured all the time. What is your response to that kind of weird dystopian imbalance of pleasure-pain?
Well, I think that this is an interesting one because that's literally like the world that we live in. Like if you like really aggregate all of like the structural violence that happens, like even if you limit it strictly to the structural violence against like children, like it's on a much greater scale really than than just like a single individual being tortured in a dungeon. And I think in order to it is intrinsically evil to undertake the action of torturing that child, but in order to believe that it is better that none of it should exist, then that it would exist in the status quo of that thought experiment, really requires you, I think, to wish for the annihilation of like our present civilization, because it is like
which people do.
Right. I mean, I think that can be a consistent position, but I think I would just rather exist than not, and I think that
Well, a funny distinction between the ones who walk away from Omelas in our society is that we are in the position of the privileged, the not being harmed. You know, we're men who go to school and live in New York City, and still the difference is that still people like us are extremely unhappy. You know, we're not guaranteed happiness despite all our privilege.
I mean, I don't know what you're insinuating. I think I'm happy.
yeah, but there's another man who's like you, who's unhappy, who's had similar upbringing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that really, I mean, to elaborate and like try to nuance my like value theory, I think that both pleasure and suffering are contingent goods. They can be meaningful. I'm glad that I suffered through the pepper.
Yeah.
I think it was good. And I'm glad that I, enjoy the things that I enjoy. But neither one of them is an intrinsic good, and in certain arrangements, they can create an emotional state of numbness to either one that is like purely despairing, that is purely destructive and nihilistic. And I think that is like real like suffering, like, well, there's a lot of conflation between that state of despair and real suffering, but I think that despair comes at the end of suffering, when it no longer has its power to make one suffer, and it's like post pain. So the relevance of that to what you're saying is that I think that because all of our material needs are generally satiated, people from our background, like, and yet everyone like us in New York has a therapist. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like it raise the question, like, why are they depressed? And I think that depression can emerge from like the satiation of material and sensory desire just as easily as it can from suffering, if not more so.
Yeah. Would you say that excessive pleasure can induce pain?
No, it can induce despair.
It can induce despair, which is not the same as pain.
No, I think that they're mutually exclusive.
Pleasure and pain.
Despair and pain.
Despair and pain.
Right. At the point that you despair, you cease to really be attuned to your suffering.
Okay.
Right, like eating like a pepper, like it's painful and it was good. But like, you know, being like depressed or like, you know, just like wanting to kill yourself, like that's not, I don't think there's anything really redeeming in that, except that you haven't done it yet. Like that, I don't think that you can single anything out of that and say that it has like value, because it is entirely like a compulsion to annihilate positive qualities.
We're still recording.
Yes. We're good.
Thank God.
Well, anyway,
Well,
I'd like to hear more of your thoughts.
My thoughts.
Let's not let this become an interview.
I know. I don't know how to express myself so good.
Oh,
yeah.
You flatter me.
I only know how to respond in these little conversation leading questions.
Interview with a man lobotomized by a habanero pepper.
Yeah. Not an incredible title, but you know we'll workshop it. Well, do we have a next segment? There's nothing on my card. We're 47 minutes in of a podcast with 10 minutes of unusable footage. Worst case scenario, we just bring out Hegel.
Oh, bring out the big guns. Let's hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, why not?
It's gonna be gibberish.
I feel like most of what we've been saying has been gibberish, so he'll fit right in our little club.
Yeah. Oh no.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Like with respect to like the girls with a time machine, boys with a time machine meme.
Yeah.
If you actually did have a time machine, what would you unironically do?
What would I unironically do with a time machine? Man, I would spend the next 3 years learning ancient Greek and then go hang out in the Socratean market and try to meet the man himself. Like that's such a boring answer, you know. I would be too scared to kill Hitler or something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that could have like real consequences.
Yeah. What would you do with a time machine?
I don't know. I probably should have thought about that before I asked the question.
No, incredible question. I was gonna ask. I think whether your unique take on pain would probably lead to some decisions that most people would not make. So I was gonna try to think of situations where you would choose to be in pain. Like,
I think if I was courageous and virtuous, and say like you could create the situation from the short story you cited from the thought experiment,
yeah,
with the tortured child or whatever, and say that you could create a situation where someone at one instant could opt into like being the torture victim. I don't attest that I have the personal virtue to do it. I would hope that I do, but I would not assume that at all until faced with a situation of that gravity. But I think that one ought to strive to be willing to sacrifice oneself as the person at the other end of the torture.
So the perfect Nick would say, yes, torture me. I'll be a forever martyr for everyone else.
Yes.
And would you be living better or worse than those other happy people? Since you're
Probably better.
Probably better.
I mean, it could just also be value neutral, right? I could just be living like, some of them are probably living better, some of them worse. But like, yeah, I would say, by and large, I am doing something more meaningful. And by being constantly tortured, well, the constant torture could probably beget a state of despair as well. So I would say that, like, for the purposes of the thought experiment, you would have to allow that you actually would be, like, feeling genuinely tortured and in pain the whole time.
Yeah.
And not just become numb to that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they change the torture methods up every week. It's tasing, then it's bees, then it's hot peppers.
Well, I think the problem is, like, within the natural order of things, there really cannot be, like, a method of torture that would actually, like, maintain its gravity on your senses without, like, reducing your consciousness to a willingness to annihilate yourself, a will to self-destruction.
Yeah.
So,
but you're still saying that lifestyle of being in despair might be neutral or might be better.
no, well, I mean, the fact that you are perpetually, like, prevented from acting on your will for self-destruction is the saving grace.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact, like, it imitates, like, a state of non-existence within your consciousness, and it can be called bad insofar as it is. But I would say that, like, if you could actually genuinely, like, maintain, like, it would require like supernatural intervention, I think, to maintain, like, the state of pure torture. But if you could do that, then it would be a good thing. It would be a better life.
Well, the only way we discover that pure torture is through experimentation.
Yeah.
Pepper?
Well, what are your thoughts? What do you, how has this experiment altered or influenced or clarified your views?
I think it's confused my views. I'm not so certain of the connection between pain. Yeah. Pain is such a confusing thing. I think it's helpful to describe pain as that thing that wants to get rid of itself. But that's not totally accurate. It's a very unique experience, indescribable experience.
Uh-huh. Do you regret eating the pepper?
No, not at all.
Yeah, me neither. I thought it was great. Like, I think it was
Yeah. But I think that little choice, almost negates the pain. The fact that I chose to be in it makes the pain something else. If I was force-fed a pepper, then that would be, like, real torture, it ultimately totally bad.
I mean, I think that torture, like, involuntary torture is wrong. Like, I think that someone should not kidnap strangers and force feed them peppers.
Hot take.
I think that would be unvirtuous. I think that it is virtuous to opt into it. So, because, like, I guess, like, using your premises going into the podcast, you would probably, like, honestly, for you to even devise this experiment, this field work, would be an act of evil, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, I'm not coercing you. Yeah.
Right, but, like, if you actually do accept that pain and, like, suffering is self-evidently bad, then I don't see how you could come to any conclusion but that it was evil for you to suggest that.
I think it's self-evidently bad. I don't really know how to describe it. It's self-evidently bad in a particular way, such that there are still situations where it's positive to feel pain. We're feeling pain in the pursuit of some philosophical truth or the pursuit of making a fun podcast, which kind of supersedes the actual badness. But pain with no end is undeniably wrong.
Why?
Because you know. You just know. You just know in your heart of hearts that it's wrong.
Yeah, I just don't put that much faith in the heart of hearts. I mean, I think that it has insights, but like, I don't know. I think that it's a real mistake to think that moral philosophy should just like justify like your intuitions. I think that maybe moral philosophy would lead you to a counterintuitive result, perhaps, like, and that you're still obligated to follow it.
Yeah. Counterintuitive results. I think you're obligated to follow whatever conclusion your inference comes to. And my inference has told me that pain is bad. Pain is no go.
I think you're obligated to be genuine, or like to act upon your true beliefs and your conscience. So
yeah,
I just think that your conscience is wrong.
My conscience is wrong. That's a heavy blow.
Or at the very least, your conscience needs more nuance on this issue.
Well,
although you are more nuanced on this issue, so I can't take that away. I gotta give you credit for... I guess the experiment was useful, even though it didn't really prove anything.
Yeah.
It did provide like a springboard to enrich our views and to clarify certain points. So
yeah, that's the case with all philosophy field work. It doesn't help anyone.
All right, next episode, we bring out the nipple clamps.
Bring out the nipple clamps. Is that the pain or pleasure episode?
Depends on your point of view, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can start bringing her to a close. Let's have a good 2-minute podcast debrief. What did we learn? What went well, and what went poorly?
I think what stood out, well, the 10 minutes of radio silence in the middle that I presume we'll cut out were not a hit in terms of podcasting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are probably good bits from it, but...
it's a lot of heavy breathing and drinking water.
Yes.
Yeah. You looked... I don't want to like harp on it, but you looked so bad. Like,
I saw myself. I know what I looked like.
It's incredible that you look so fine now, when for a period of 5 minutes...
I'm actually really impressed how good I feel right now.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, I didn't expect to be incapacitated by it, you know? Like, it really just, like, physically impaired me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's on the level of the pain itself, although I guess, like, you know, I'm not Mr. Tough Guy. I can be impaired by pain, even though I don't think it's intrinsically bad. Like...
Yeah.
Just, like, I guess, like, yeah, of course, like, if it, like, really does get to a point where it prevents you from doing what is meaningful to you, then, it probably has become a moral issue at that point.
Yeah.
But it's not a matter of degree, and I don't think it's a matter of opting in per se either. I think that it really is just a matter of, like, what you do while you're under a state of duress. But I would still say the 10 minutes or so when it was really brutal were meaningful and well-lived minutes, and I would rather do that than sit at home twiddling my thumbs.
Well, next time you're at home twiddling your thumbs, you can come over to get a pepper, and I will be glad to improve your life that way.
Thank you. I might take you up on that.
Okay, I guess we learned some things.
What did you learn?
I don't know. I learned that everybody reacts differently to spicy peppers. And I learned that that my position is not so obvious as I thought it was. I think you've brought me around a little bit, which is exactly the opposite of what I wanted. Unfortunately.
Oh, well, I can't apologize. I'm glad that it worked out.
Too smart for your own good.
Just using my big brain to plow right through the pain.
Yeah. What went well? We survived. That's number one.
Yes, and we're still fairly lucid to make the rest of the podcast. So.
I have to pee so bad. I drank so much water.
All right, then let's wrap it up.
What went poorly?
Well, I think I'd already told you. It's
you're right.
10 minutes or we were out of commission.
Yeah. Well, great podcast, great first podcast. Thank you for coming, Nick.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I look forward to more.
I guess we will see you next time on We Disagree. Great! We did it. We said it at the same time.